There is a game being played all around you. It's a game of wealth, power, and control, and its rules are written in a language you were never taught. You've been told that the path to prosperity is paved with hard work, diligent saving, and shrewd investing in the public markets. This is the public-facing system, the one celebrated on financial news networks. It is a magnificent, glittering machine, but it is not the real system. The real system, the one that operates in the quiet boardrooms and the unseen digital ledgers of the world, is entirely different. It is a secret financial system, engineered by the wealthy, for the wealthy. It is not designed to create wealth. It is designed to preserve and multiply it, shielding it from the storms of taxation, inflation, and market volatility that erode the savings of ordinary people. To understand this hidden architecture, we must go back in time to a city built on water, a republic of merchants that became the first great laboratory of modern capitalism, Venice. Behind the public facade of Venetian splendor was a set of financial and legal innovations that allowed its ruling class to protect fortunes on a scale the world had never seen. The Venetians perfected the art of running two systems simultaneously. The first was the open, risky market around the Rialto, much like our modern stock market. The real Venetian system, however, was a closed network of patrician families. Their most powerful innovation was a legal one, a form of partnership known as the colleganza. In this arrangement, a wealthy investor could finance a merchant's voyage while legally limiting their liability only to the capital they invested. Their family's wider fortune, their palaces and other investments were legally shielded if the ship sank. For the first time, a legal structure was created to insulate wealth from risk. The average Venetian had no such protection. The patrician, however, could take immense risks, knowing their core wealth remained untouchable within a legal fortress. This is the foundational principle of the secret financial system, the separation of the self from the capital. The wealthy do not own assets in the same way you do. Their assets are held within a complex web of trusts, foundations, and corporations, each a modern version of the Venetian colleganza. The Venetian model was a fortress. But the blueprint for a truly global system would be drawn up by the next great power, the British Empire. They did it with a tool far more subtle and enduring, the English trust. A trust is a piece of legal alchemy that can make ownership vanish into thin air. An individual, the settler, gives an asset to a trustee to manage for a beneficiary. Once in the trust, the settler no longer legally owns it. This was a weapon of the English aristocracy, forged to protect their ancestral lands from the grasping hands of the crown and creditors. A nobleman's estate, held in trust, could not be seized if he fell into debt or committed treason. It was the ultimate way to have your cake and eat it too. As the British Empire expanded, this powerful legal technology was exported across the globe. The City of London became the new global financial centre, and its law firms became the architects of a new system. This is where the concept of offshore was truly born. An offshore jurisdiction is a separate legal reality. The first were Britain's own Channel Islands, Jersey, and Guernsey. As taxes rose in mainland Britain to pay for 2 world wars, the elite quietly moved their assets into trusts administered there, where secrecy was paramount and taxes were negligible, while the public was being brought into a new system of income, tax. A parallel system was being perfected for the elite to legally opt out. This architecture needed fuel, a massive, stateless ocean of capital to power it. In the aftermath of the Second World War, the Cold War would create exactly that. The Soviet Union and its allies earned vast sums of US dollars from selling oil, but were terrified of depositing them in American banks. London banks made a quiet offer: deposit your dollars with us. Because these are US dollars held outside the United States, they are not subject to American banking regulations. This was the birth of the Eurodollar market, a ghost currency, a river of stateless money outside the control of any government. This unregulated ocean of money needed a home. As colonialism ended, dozens of small island nations were granted independence. London-based lawyers and accountants arrived with a proposition: adopt our English trust law, guarantee absolute bank secrecy, and levy zero tax on foreign capital, and we will bring the money to you. Territories like the Cayman Islands and the British Virgin Islands took the deal, becoming nodes in a global tax haven archipelago. This is where the true complexity of the spider's web emerged. A billionaire's untaxed proceeds are wired to a Swiss bank account owned by a Panamanian shell company, which is in turn owned by an anonymous Cayman trust. The money has been passed through so many legal and geographical layers that its true origin is effectively undiscoverable. This shadow empire operates using a specific set of tools. The most fundamental is the Shell Corporation, a company that exists only as a legal fiction, a ghost in the machine. Its sole purpose is to hold assets and obscure the identity of its true owner. A Russian oligarch buys a $50 million Manhattan penthouse not in his name, but in the name of an anonymous shell company registered in the British Virgin Islands, a jurisdiction where revealing the true owner is a legally protected secret. The next tool is a weaponized version of the English trust, the Asset Protection Trust, or APT. Engineered in places like the Cook Islands or South Dakota, these are legal black holes designed to make assets completely untouchable by creditors, ex-spouses, or even court orders from other countries. But the most famous tools are those used by multinational corporations to avoid taxes, like the infamous double Irish with a Dutch sandwich. A tech giant earns billions in a high-tax country like Germany, but legally shifts the profits to a subsidiary in low-tax Ireland by paying it massive royalty fees for using the company's intellectual property. The profits are then routed through the Netherlands and onto a zero-tax haven like Bermuda. This isn't a loophole, it's a deliberately engineered system, a feature, not a bug, of a globalized world where capital is mobile, but populations and tax authorities are not. A system of this scale does not exist in a vacuum. It casts a long, dark shadow over the real economy, and you are paying the price. The first cost is the starvation of the state. The trillions of dollars legally diverted offshore are trillions that are not available to fund healthcare, education, or infrastructure. The tax burden inevitably shifts downwards onto small businesses and individual workers. Your taxes are higher to compensate for the revenue that has been siphoned away. The second price is the destruction of fair competition. A local bookstore must pay all its taxes and factor that into its prices. Its global online competitor can use offshore schemes to pay a near-zero tax rate, using those savings to undercut the local business until it is crushed. The small business is not being outcompeted, it is being outlawyered. But the final price is the most corrosive: the collapse of social trust. A functioning society is built on the belief that everyone is playing by the same set of rules. The visible existence of a parallel system exclusively for the wealthy shatters this contract. It fuels the narrative that the system is rigged because it is. This is a primary engine of wealth inequality. A giant, upward hoovering wealth pump that aggressively magnifies the fortunes of those with untaxed capital, while the wealth of taxed labor stagnates. If the system is so damaging, why is it allowed to continue? Because it is quietly protected by the world's most powerful governments. The first layer of complicity is the revolving door. A senior official at a nation's Treasury Department learns the intricate details of the tax code and, upon leaving public service, is hired by an elite accounting or law firm for a multi-million-dollar salary to advise clients on how to navigate the very laws they helped write. This creates a perverse incentive to keep the system complex and full of loopholes. The second reason is a global race to the bottom. Nations compete against each other to offer lower taxes and greater secrecy to attract mobile capital, making coordinated international action nearly impossible. But the most shocking truth is that the greatest enablers are the United Kingdom and the United States. The City of London is the central hub of the spider's web, and most major tax havens, like the Cayman Islands, are British overseas territories over which the UK has ultimate legal power. It never acts because the fees generated by this system prop up its economy. The US, meanwhile, publicly condemns foreign tax havens while actively building its own at home. States like Delaware, Nevada, and South Dakota have become global hotspots for anonymous shell companies and unbreakable trusts, attracting illicit capital from around the world. The secret system is not a bug in global capitalism. It's a feature, protected by the very governments that claim to oppose it. The danger of this system was never clearer than during the 2008 global financial crisis. The public story was about bad mortgages, but the real story was about the unregulated offshore shadow banking system infecting the entire world. Wall Street banks bundled thousands of toxic subprime loans into complex products called collateralized debt obligations, or CDOs. To get these ticking time bombs off their own books and hide the risk from regulators, they sold them to thousands of shell companies, special purpose vehicles. They had set up in places like the Cayman Islands. These toxic assets were now off-balance sheet, hidden in the anonymous offshore world. The credit rating agencies, the system's enablers, gave these incredibly risky products the highest possible safety rating, AAA. This allowed them to be sold to pension funds and city governments who had no idea they were buying concentrated poison. When the US housing market crashed, the poison that had been incubated offshore came rushing back, bankrupting global banks and freezing the world's credit markets. The price was paid by ordinary people who lost their homes and jobs. The bankers, who engineered the crisis, protected by the complexity of their offshore structures, were bailed out by taxpayers. The 2008 crisis was the inevitable result of a two-tiered system. It was the ultimate demonstration of its core principle: profits are privatized, while losses are always socialized. Beyond financial crises, the system's darkest role is as the getaway car for global crime and corruption. It provides the essential infrastructure for kleptocrats, ruled by thieves, to plunder their own nations. A dictator can steal $100 million from his country's healthcare budget. But to make the theft permanent, he must get the money into the stable, first-world financial system. His stolen funds are laundered through a series of anonymous shell companies, passing through jurisdictions with lax oversight, cleaned by the veneer of British or American legality, and finally landing in a discreet trust in Jersey or South Dakota. That trust, managed by a team of professional Western enablers, lawyers, accountants, and wealth managers, then invests the now clean money into legitimate assets: a luxury penthouse in London, a villa on the French Riviera, a portfolio of stocks. The human cost is staggering. That London apartment is the ghost of a hospital that was never built. The secret system provides the incentive for this theft by guaranteeing a safe and reliable escape route for stolen assets. It is an engine of impoverishment, actively draining wealth from the world's poorest countries and funneling it into the real estate and financial markets of the richest. This system is not a static relic. It is a dynamic organism, constantly evolving to survive. The recent global push for banking transparency has forced it to adapt. Wealth is now shifting from traceable bank accounts to opaque, non-financial assets, luxury real estate held by anonymous shell companies, or fine art stored and traded tax-free in secretive, high-tech warehouses known as freeports in Geneva and Singapore. The system is also moving into the intangible realm, the most valuable. Corporate assets today are often intellectual property, algorithms, and brand names. A company can legally domicile its IP in a Bermudan shell company and then charge all of its global subsidiaries massive royalty fees, ensuring that all corporate profit accumulates in that zero-tax location. The rise of cryptocurrencies presents another frontier. While not perfectly anonymous, they offer new tools for moving money across borders, and the true synergy lies in using old offshore structures, like trusts, to hold and trade these new digital assets, adding a legal shield to the technological one. The system is not dying, it is molting, shedding its old skin of banking secrecy and re-emerging in a new, more ethereal form, harder to pin down than ever before. To stand before a system so vast is to feel powerless. And it is true that no single person can dismantle this global machine. Grand solutions like a global asset registry or a binding minimum corporate tax are noble goals, but face immense political obstacles. The real question is, what can you do? The answer is to stop thinking like a victim and start learning from the system's architects. This is not a call to emulate their morality, but to understand and apply their core principles defensively in your own life. The first principle is the insulation of assets from risk. Use the legal structures available to you, like a limited liability company for a small business, to create a firewall between your economic and personal life. The second principle is to understand the difference between real and paper assets. The elite use paper to get rich, but they use real assets, property, productive businesses, tangible resources to stay rich. Cultivate a healthy skepticism of complex financial products and appreciate enduring, real-world value. The final and most important principle is the value of knowledge. The system runs on an information gap. Your greatest defense is to close that gap. Financial sovereignty begins with intellectual sovereignty. Read financial history, question official narratives, and understand the real incentives that drive the system. You may never be invited to play their game, but you can refuse to be a pawn. You can build your own personal fortress, not of secrecy, but of resilience, prudence, and clarity. The secret financial system is a story of a hidden set of rules that governs the world.